The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. Aki Brandon.
Welcome back to another edition of The Brandon Peters Show, and the first one on my brand new computer. Yes, folks, I'm back in business. Today we'll be discussing David Lynch's 1990 film, Wild at Heart. And to babble and ramble about the film, today I'm especially honored, humbled, and tickled to have the man behind the music act Metavari, and from the About the Show section of the site, Nate Utesch.
Hey. What's up?
Hey, welcome. So happy to have you. Not only be a guest, but to have you be a part of the show every single episode.
Right. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, so thank you for coming on. And people who listen maybe don't know, but you and I have known each other for a long time.
Sure have.
I think, was it 5th grade that we...
At least.
I think because I moved to a new school, and then you were like the first person to like hang out outside of school.
Oh, that's awesome. So. Yeah, right. Playing Sega Genesis.
Watching stupid movies and doing things.
Oh, man. What is better than that as a child?
No. You think you were the one who introduced me to Strange Brew of all things, and which I recently showed my kids, and they loved it.
Oh, that's awesome. Man, I was just considering that with my child the other day. I'm like, can you watch Strange Brew as a 3-year-old? It's pretty appropriate.
Yeah. 8 and 6. They
okay. All right. Perfect.
They were calling people hosers, so I love that. That was good. I was trying to get him to go, it's not a jelly, but...
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we went through, we graduated high school together.
Yep.
And paths continued to cross every so often, every so many years. I think we met people during college time. We met people that ended up knowing each other, and we lived with one of them or something. I knew somebody when I was going to college, and you knew somebody, and they were like, do you know this guy, whatever? I know that guy. They brought him to the house. It was crazy.
Those kind of reunions are the best, when it's like actually a friend.
Oh, yeah.
Ages. You're like, oh, this makes no sense that I'm seeing you in this house.
I wound up with this guy. I wound up with this guy. Oh, yeah, okay.
Right. So great.
Like a happy, I ran to my ex-girlfriend and with my new girlfriend, and like the good version of something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. But yeah, you've been a longtime musician, very good at it. Your first band was a punk band named Templeton? Was it? Yeah. That was it. I got it. All right.
I remember that.
I had to search my brain for what was that name called?
Wow.
It's like a trio, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. What in the world? Yeah, named after Ed Templeton, the skateboarder at the time that I loved, which is just so stupid. But oh man, I love that you remembered that.
Good. And then you had I remember also a new metal band you had that I don't remember the name of that.
That's fine.
That's the stages you go through. Oh, all of a sudden you Metavari, and when did you begin to explore, produce electronics, atmospheric music? Because punk, metal,
right?
And then screw it, I'm doing that.
Man, good question. I mean, I was in a band in college, and I bought I bought my first big kid synthesizer in, was it college? It's either my senior year or freshman year of college. Didn't know what the hell I was doing with it. It had it was a Moog Prodigy. I got it for cheap because somebody had put fingernail polish everywhere there was wood. So it looked horrible. So I was trying to play that in this rock band, but it was so fun. And I liked electronic music at the time, but it wasn't, it kind of felt like this, I felt so detached from ever being a reality for my life as a musician, because electronic music just felt like another brain that wasn't my brain. And I would never play it. As much as I loved it, it would not be something I would ever understand. And all of a sudden, in a couple years' time, my roommate at the time, he and I were making music together, and he bought a drum machine, and we actually got free laptops through some like internet scam that we found a loophole through. And then all of a sudden we had like MacBooks and recording software, and just started dabbling, like huge fans of Aphex Twin and like old Brian Eno ambient stuff, and just started playing around with sound design and synthesizers and sequencing of electronics and making beats and stuff like that. And I think 2006 was like the year that we put a name to it, called it Metavari. I've been doing Metavari one way or another since 2006, which is crazy. Something should have come of it by now, but it hasn't. So
Metavari, where'd the name come from?
Oh man, it's so stupid. But I had this weird opportunity to like visit Turkey for like a couple months around the time that we were like making this like, ambient, abstract, electronic music, whatever, in our basement together. And I got back from Turkey, and we're doing the thing that you do where you name a band and throw stuff in a hat and, open up dictionary and make up words and all that dumb stuff that goes there. But it's so fun. It's like a, adolescent or somebody in their like early 20s, like naming shit. And one of the first songs we wrote was called Prince or Princes. And I had met this guy in Turkey that was from the country Georgia, and was just kind of like obsessed with how like mystical and magical and weird he was and different than me. And I like loved all the conversations I had with him. So I wanted to like name it a Georgian word, and the Georgian word for princes, I don't know how to pronounce, but a completely like annihilated Western pronunciation of that word is Metavari. So it's just like so dumb and weird, but it's like practically a made up word, but inspired by this Georgian word for prince.
But it became a good story. You say you have no success, but I mean, success, as I've talked in a different episode, I mean, there's different barometers for it, but you've actually, I mean, you've had albums.
Yeah.
And you've, are they like self-produced kind of, and you send them off and someone puts them out, or do you go and somebody puts you in a studio, or?
It's changed a lot over the years. I've been really fortunate. We were on a label in the earliest days of Metavari. There were 5 of us. We recorded a couple records in that iteration of the band, did some stuff in a studio, some stuff our own, hired a mixing engineer for one of the records. So that was kind of cool to have that experience as like a band. Since it's been me or myself and, 1 or 2 other people over the last several years, it's looked a lot different, where it has mostly been self-produced, but the label representation now is a lot larger. So we're on a record label who is distributed by Light in the Attic in Seattle, which does, John Carpenter's catalog and the Stranger Things soundtracks and all this business that I have no business putting out records alongside of, but we do now. So it's amazing, have this like worldwide distribution and record store day stuff. And it's just been insanely fortunate what we've stumbled into, and the life that is Metavari right now.
Yeah, you got stuff on vinyl too, right?
Yeah.
And that's awesome. That's how many copies of each do you keep for yours, just for safekeeping?
Man, just not as much as I wish I would, because then I end up like slowly giving them away, or somebody will ask like, hey, I can't find it. Do you have any extra copies? I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll sell you this one. And then I'm down to 2 or whatever, but it's all right. It's awesome.
Have you done any scores for any like independent films, or been approached about it at all? Because your music can fit into that avenue.
Yeah. It's kind of been a weird ride in that angle. Like one of the biggest projects I was a part of was a rescoring of a film. We rescored Metropolis as like an official record store day title in 2017. And then that was kind of a cool gateway that we did a tour where we played it at theaters and events where we screened the film alongside playing it live, and then, got offers to do little things, like no big motion picture stuff. I got to pitch to producers for some film in Hollywood, and I don't know who the directors were, but I didn't get chosen to be the composer on the film. But it was like a taste of what that world might look like. But we're actually working on a documentary, a score for a documentary film right now. Yeah, it's been weird. I haven't, it would be a dream to work on a motion picture, but right now it's small fish that I'm frying.
Gotcha. And then you've also, I mean, we're going to talk about David Lynch in a bit, but you've done some rescores inspired by David Lynch.
Yeah. So a year after the Metropolis rescore, the same label offered to do another official, well, we would pitch to Record Store Day that it be an official title. If we could come up with something else to rescore, because the Metropolis rescore went over really well. So we went back and forth on a lot of different things. David Lynch is a huge influence on me visually and musically, and had this concept to create like 40 minutes of music that would be rescores of 10 short films. They loved it. I produced it in a few months and we pitched it, and it made its way in and became an official title in 2019. And it's called Absurda. It's maybe my favorite thing I've ever done, honestly.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
that record.
Awesome. Is that the one with Diane's song on there? Is that on that?
It isn't. It isn't.
No, okay.
No.
That was just another thing?
That was another one. Yeah, it was what was that for? There's have you ever come across that blog, Welcome to Twin Peaks? It's kind of like
may not have.
They're just like remarkably nerdy repository of David Lynch and Twin Peaks information, and they were working on with a label to put out this like compilation of Twin Peaks inspired music. And I wrote a song called "Oh Diane," like using lines from the movie and turning them into lyrics, and it was ridiculous, but that was super fun.
That's pretty cool. And then you also do live shows too. I mean, you're not just like a studio only. You have some pretty cool. You tour. You play live, seen your live show. It's pretty awesome. It's got lighting, good lighting, and
it's so fun. It's so I mean, I have not played in a while with the Earth as it's spinning currently. But yeah, the last tour we did was after Absurda came out. We toured the U.S. and a little bit of Canada, screening the Lynch short films and performing in front of it, and it was awesome. It was a blast. Working with a drummer now, kind of this like contemporary percussionist that wrote these like wild drum and percussion pieces over a lot of the material that I had scored, and it was our first time playing together on this tour. It was awesome.
Oh, that's cool. You did do like a safe event, not recently. That was it was a while back.
Yeah, for the fall. Yep.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I remember.
It was like a social distancing show. Where it's outside and everybody's mapped out in a grid and wearing masks, and it was safe as it could be, but completely strange. Playing to a bunch of seated people 6 feet apart on the lawn.
Yeah,
but good for our music. It's very like cinema. It's not dancey music. It's cinematic. Right. It's strange, and a lot of it's kind of non-linear in a lot of ways. So just to have people sit and absorb it felt right.
Take it in. Yeah, I wanted to go to that, but I was like, I'm not going. I'm weary about everything.
No, it was pretty wild.
Oh yeah, and also one of the things about you is you're also one of the best like hand drawn artists I've ever met before, and like your stuff when we were kids, your stuff is better than most adults. So, and it's pretty crazy. You got like the dual thing going. Where, I mean, a lot of musicians, will have the artistic side stuff, but like, you obviously do your own artwork, right? For the Metavari stuff. But you've done some other ones too that are pretty cool. So
the last about 7 years, I've actually worked in my daylight hours for a record label. I'm part of their art department and an art director at the label, and get to work on the packaging for all the bands that come through. So half of the roster, I work with the bands on either designing their package for them or helping them through the process. And through that and some like freelance opportunities have gotten to work on some really cool album cycles for bands from like Smashing Pumpkins to Weezer, and a lot of bands on the Secretly Canadian and Jaguar. It's a really cool thing to kind of have a foot in both of those worlds in the music industry. Not that like, Metavari is this career artist, but, as a, vocation in performing and as a composer, and then also a career in the visual art side of the music industry. I feel really fortunate to have a foot in those worlds and kind of see how everything's made in that way. It's been really inspiring in a lot of ways for what I do as Metavari, to work with artists that are light years ahead of me, but when they're not dicks, they're inspiring people. So it's a flip of a coin sometimes, but
they're particular.
It's cool. Yeah, right.
I've dealt in different ways. I myself can be particular, but like speaking of that, we'll go that you made the song for this show, which
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
eternally grateful for.
Dude.
Which I came to you like the minute. I think I came to you before I announced that the other show was gone. I think I might have.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm not sure, but I was working on this, and I was like, my first choice, I want him to do my song.
Oh man, that's
if he can. And then you were doing it, and you did it for nothing. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, I couldn't
It was
believe
so
it,
fun.
'cause I went for art for this show and was getting these astronomical prices, and I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you, like, nailed it. Like, it was insane.
I mean, the fact that it's you,
Right.
it was like, yeah, this is going to be so fun. And then you sent me the references of like music you liked, like what it should kind of hearken to. And it was, everything that I listened to already. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this. This is going to be great.
Right. Yeah. Cause I gave you, I was like, I want some Giallo stuff. Cause I had backup in case you didn't get it done in time or whatever. I was going to use the theme song from Tenebrae, Dario Argento film, which I really liked. That was like kind of the kicker, but you got it done in time. Like you, got it done way in time, I think.
Okay. I couldn't remember. It's like, was it a skin of the teeth?
No, there was a time where I was trying to hit after Labor Day, and you got it in like 2 weeks before that, which was fine. And I remember when I got it, I just listened. I was like, "Oh man!" I'm like, I'm gonna send it to a couple people and see what they think of it. And I sent it to my producer, and he was like, "Fuck you," because we run a audio drama thing that's been slow as hell called Don't Flinch, which is a horror anthology audio drama series, and he's been looking for like a theme for that stuff. And he's like, he's been given some kickback because of the content we've produced that's not out there or whatever. Some of the composers are like, I don't want my name on that.
Interesting.
And he's like, fuck you. You would just as soon as I was like, and then I listened to other people, and I think Nick Rust was on here recently, and he's on Literate Gamer, and he was helping with stuff in pre-show, and he's like, I'm still mad at you for that song. Like, how did so it has gotten rave reviews.
That's great. Oh man, that
across
makes
the
me so
board.
happy.
And there's two versions. You had one, which was great, and then you added just a hint in the next one, and it was like, oh, it's even better. So
it was such a funny thing because I think I'm a silly person in my life, but my music tends to be a little dark, a little more brooding. And I'm like, and I think we talked about it. I was like, is this going to feel like this weird, like pretentious, overlord intro music? And maybe it does, but that's all right.
It soaks you in. You're like, oh, we're going to have some serious discussion on this show. But I think that you added a little element, and it gave it just the hint of pep that it needed.
Yeah, good.
And I was like, you know what? I don't care if it fits. This is just awesome. And you don't turn down awesome. Like I was talking about on an episode, we talked about the Blink-182's Adams song, and I read that Mark Hoppus wrote it when they were doing Enema of the State. And he wasn't sure. He took it to the band. He's like, I really like the song. We're making the album, but I just won't go on there because, it's a sad bastard kind of song. And, it's probably not going to fit. And they're like, no, good songs go on our albums. I don't care if it fits or not.
That's cool.
The rest of the band was like, it goes on. So I'm like, yes, it goes. I don't care. This thing was awesome, and I utilized it. It sounds great, and I hated chopping it up a bit to make it fit. I hate it. I'm like, I want it to go as long, and luckily the end credits plays the whole thing. Yeah. But I wanted it to. I was like, no, you have to hear the whole thing. But I've learned, like, a lot of people want the show to get started. So
right, yeah, that makes sense.
As long as it starts between 30 and 40 seconds, I think I'm good. And as long as you hear a voice at the start.
Yeah.
But man, you and Jessica did me so well with that, and I'm eternally grateful for that theme song.
So welcome. I love hearing all that.
I'd go the far end of the world for you, baby.
Rockin' good news.
Mama can't stand it.
I'm gonna hire me a hitman.
Don't be getting carried away.
But Sailor and Lula can't help it.
Baby, you got me hotter than Georgia asphalt.
Newsweek calls it spectacular and funny.
You really are dangerously cute, baby.
From the director of Twin Peaks, David Lynch's Wild at Heart, this summer's wildest love story. Rated R. Starts Friday, August 17th at theaters nationwide.
Wild at Heart is written and directed by David Lynch, based on a novel by Barry Gifford. It stars Nicolas Cage, Laura Dern, Willem Dafoe, Diane Ladd, J.E. Freeman, Isabella Rossellini, Harry Dean Stanton, Calvin Lockhart, Crispin Glover, David Patrick Kelly, Grace Zabriskie, Jack Nance, Sherilyn Fenn, and Cheryl Lee, which some of these people aren't in the movie as that much, but damn, they need to be noted. It's about young lovers Sailor and Lula run from the variety of weirdos that Lula's mom has hired to kill Sailor. And this, for Lynch, this is his first feature film following Blue Velvet. It's right smack dab in the middle of Twin Peaks, as you'll see with the cast in this. And there's some people that blame the second season of Twin Peaks on this movie, some of its lows, but it has nothing to do with it. Like his
I'm glad we're not going there.
His response to anything with Twin Peaks, his leaving of it, had nothing to do with doing Wild at Heart.
Right.
It had everything to do with some network issues. He did not want to outright solve the Laura Palmer murder, and that was what. And he said, "Fine, I'll do it," and I'm out. And then he came back towards the end, and it was.
Saved it.
Too late. Yeah, I saved it, but it was, I guess, too late. Yeah,
that's true. Not exactly saved it, but
there's a lot of weird stuff going on in that middle section. But we're here for Wild at Heart. It's kind of his Bonnie and Clyde, right?
Right.
It's about, he calls them Elvis and Bubblegum. That's what he refers to
great.
Lula and Sailor. And I mean, you've probably seen Cage memes from this.
No kidding.
You gave me like a list, and I'm like, I want to do like all of these, but David Lynch's birthday's coming up next week. I share the birthday with him, January 20th. It's one of the greatest days of the year, and this year, yes, it will be a great day.
Yes, it will.
Everybody's excited. I go every time I see on Twitter someone mention the date, I go. It's like, everybody's excited for my birthday, which January 20th. Good day. David Lynch, his birthday's that day. A lot of other people, like Tom Baker, my favorite doctor, we share it.
Crazy.
So it's all good. And McCoy from Star Trek, DeForest Kelley, the original
all right.
Bones. Yes.
Man, that's a good birthday lineup.
It is pretty
right
good. It is pretty good. I can sour it with Stacey Dash, but we can... We can do that. So, this one, why was this one of the Lynch's on your radar to pick?
Yeah, man, that's such a good question. I mean, we talked about Lynch a lot. I love David Lynch. It's not one of the first films, and definitely not one of my favorite Lynch films, but, I've practically been a lifelong Lynch fan. I have this phenomenon in my life that I feel so fortunate for, and that is that my dad, for some reason, while being a conservative religious Midwestern man, had for some reason had no filter on like music and movies for me. So I was like raised in this house where like rated R movies out of the gate. It's like, hey, I liked it, so you're going to watch this even though you're 6 or whatever. And Lynch was one of those things. I remember Dune was the first thing I ever saw. Not that that's great Lynch canon, but I remember being at the video store, and I mean, I was probably 13, and he sees the Twin Peaks pilot episode in the video store. And it was, you probably know, but like how the pilot episode, there's like a European version that's self-contained in case the show wouldn't get picked up. They'd have like this film version of it, and you could rent that version of it for a while. So we're in the video store, and he's like, oh yeah, this at the time, the show was only a couple years old. So he's like, yeah, I remember this when it was on TV. You're going to love it. We rent it. I did love it, but not for the reasons I love it now. It just was something weird, it had this, the little person in it, and strange music, and a lot of sexual overtones, but no topless scenes. So it was like, okay to watch with my parents or whatever. But then I went straight from that to Firewalk with Me. and he's like, I'm watching that as this like 13-year-old with my father, and both loving it, of me loving it for very different reasons than him. But then those two rentals, the pilot episode and Firewalk with Me, were the things that I rented every time I had sleepovers. Like,
yes.
I mean, maybe we've even, I'm sure we've watched it
showed me
together.
Firewalk with Me. I had no idea what it was. I was like, all right.
So, but then, and then as like, adolescence went on, I obviously like went head first into David Lynch, watched everything. I remember buying the Twin Peaks on VHS at Suncoast Motion Pictures, and saw Wild at Heart finally and everything else, and just ate it up. So then it's been this weird thing that I've returned to as I've grown old. And it's also, I guess I should note like while I do love film and I love Lynch, I'm not like an avid rewatcher of movies. Like watching this to prepare for this episode is probably the third time I've seen Wild at Heart.
Right. This is one of my lesser. I saw it like a year ago. I had to review the Blu-ray, so I've seen it recently. But this is one of my like lesser watched ones of his.
Totally. So I think when I was like drafting the list to you, it was like, okay, we could do Mulholland Drive, we could do Firewalk with Me, but maybe let's talk about a weird one. Do I regret it? I don't know. We'll find out as we talk, but here it is, Wild at Heart. And it's, it's pretty linear it's fairly straightforward for being a Lynch. There's obviously wacky stuff happening, but
it's a weird dichotomy with Blue Velvet's probably his most, like, that's not Dune, which I'd say Blue Velvet's more accessible than Dune, honestly.
Right.
Dune. But I would say, like, it's his most accessible, like, after Blue Velvet, it's accessible, but he tricks you. Because if you're like, I like exactly. Blue Velvet, I'll go to, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, it's narratively pretty
turned
easy.
Up a little.
But right around here, you get Natural Born Killers, just similar to this, but much more less what the fuck than Wild at Heart here. But
yeah, right.
It's weird because it's straight, it's odd, and sometimes the odd comforts you from some of the straight. It's really weird how he plays with this.
Right.
It's very interesting.
There's something too about it. I'm curious what you thought about this, but like, I mean, obviously we know that it came out like smack when Twin Peaks was happening, and there's people that swear, like you said, like that the reason why Lynch isn't involved in season 2 is because of Wild at Heart. So they're very closely related. Actors are closely related. But now rewatching it all these years later, being much more familiar with Twin Peaks, it feels a lot like Twin Peaks. Like a lot to me. Film quality, music,
the mom
editing, the mom,
right
the just the pacing of things. It was the cross dissolves. Like there was so much of it where I've just found myself like realizing how similar the world felt to Twin Peaks in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's where his head's at the time. Like, and he's not afraid.
Right.
Like, I don't. Like I told you, and someone once discussing me, and they mentioned, Lynch. He's not like he's not a filmmaker. He's not a painter. He's just like this artist. Like he's this brain, and he's not going to care that his last film looked like this, and then this one carries some of the. He's figuring things out. He's expressing himself, and he doesn't care if it's proper film work, if it's proper this, that. It's his way of expression, and I don't know how the guy's done it his whole career, like unfiltered, like just, they just like let him like go. Like most of those people get harnessed, punished, director jail, but Lynch has been allowed to just go. And
that's really interesting.
And there's something in the guy. I mean, like he was who George Lucas wanted for Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Like I don't know what that movie is going to look like, but I have a hard time thinking he would enjoy working on it.
I know. Have you seen the interviews where people have asked him to react to his time talking to George Lucas? And I guess he got like a horrible migraine, and it was just like all he could think of was like how to get away from the interview he was having with George Lucas like as fast as possible. And it's just really hilarious.
Oh, that's because he's not one of those guys. He came around like around the time with them. Like he's at the end of that decade with like Carpenter and stuff, but like there's the whole film school, and he was one of those brilliant artists coming out of that free reign 70s, changing film decades, but he wasn't one of those guys.
Yeah, right. Very much not.
And he's kind of like in a way where Friedkin's more technical, like who did The Exorcist and French Connection, all that. He picked up and went with it. He didn't go to film school, but he wound up with those guys. He fit in with those guys a little bit because he started Zoetrope with Coppola and Bogdanovich. But then here comes Lynch, same kind of deal, but he's not.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
He's the more arts abstract guy.
Yeah, way more nebulous in his like conception of what he's after.
Whereas Friedkin picks up on the technical side and like everything, but they're both not film school brats like those guys.
Right.
But yeah, this one, he likes a book. Like he does the straight story down the road in this same decade.
Disney, right.
And it's just kind of odd, but he just does what he wants, and you're never going to figure him out. He's not going to tell you.
No way.
With his films, you experience them. His joy is hearing what you thought you saw. You're not supposed to watch it like a normal, and that's not an excuse for sloppiness. That's not an excuse for something that doesn't make sense. It's just a different way of appreciating a film and a work, and it's not for everybody, of course, but even this film's no different, even though it's narratively similar.
No, I'm glad you brought that, like that ethos that he has, like any fan of Lynch knows that about it. Like that's such a big part of him. And I feel like that has kind of been maybe the single most like inspiring thing about him for me. Like that has dictated the kind of music that I like and art. And even the music that I make is this idea that it can be bizarre. It can be, I don't know, obtuse, whatever. And the interpretation of it after you let it go is part of the ride, is part of the experience.
Right.
You having to stop and explain it. Like I remember a quote of him saying something like he hates having to finish anything because then he has to explain it when he's done. And it's just great. I absolutely love that about him. I love that about art.
Yeah.
This idea that it is intentionally for you to figure out.
Right.
And your journey of like processing that in its bizarreness is part of the film. You know, you just nothing
I love
is
something
nothing
that
is
asks me
set
to
out there.
return to
Yeah.
it. Something
Right.
And I think with Lynch, you get a faction of people that say they're Lynch fans, but they're really kind of more Twin Peaks fans. Like, I feel like there's a break off. There's people like Twin Peaks, and then when The Return came, they were like, what is this? I'm like, this is like, I don't know how he convinced somebody to make this.
Right.
This is amazing.
He's like referencing his entire life in these episodes, and the Twin Peaks fans are going, what? What am I watching?
He's just making this grand stroke. Cooper's not I'm like, he's not going to bring him back till the last minute.
Yeah, I think the moment that I realized that's what was happening, it was like, I hate you and you're genius. Like that, you're not going to give us Cooper to the very, very end. And
there's an old thing, and don't give the audience what they want. You know, this is not what you want, but it's what you need or something like. But I think art shouldn't be constantly catered. Nothing, and I'm not going to take credit for this, but none of your favorite stuff ever came from fan catering or safety or something. It came from you leaving your comfort zone and trying something weird.
Great.
Granted, we're going to have a whole generation of people learning stuff from fan catering, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's a time and place, you know.
There is.
Mandalorian exists for a very specific reason.
I do find it funny when people talk about, oh, that episode was fan wagon. I'm like, this show is based off another
what makes you think it's not
character. Like the entire show exists because of a fan pandering character.
Totally.
Like that. It's
yep.
Back to Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
This has it's a weird. There's a lot of allusions to Wizard of Oz, but there's no straight connection. Like there's the yellow brick road of them traveling, I guess, with the yellow lines and and then there's the ball. And I was trying this time really hard to put it together, and I can't. Like I thought Cage towards the end when he put on the snakeskin jacket, I was like, oh, he's the wizard, but maybe he's not. And it's there, and I'm just not seeing it all the way, but I'm like, who are the three? Like, who are the Cowardly Lion, the Scarecrow, and the Tin? Like, I'm not
right. Yeah, it's loose, and
I
mean, I don't even think I knew until this rewatch that Diane Ladd was also playing the Wicked Witch.
Oh yeah.
And those crystal ball scenes. For some reason, I think I had remembered that as just being these quick interjections of like nonsense. I'm like, oh wait, I don't know. It's idiotic of me, but yeah, exactly.
So there's that. Yeah, she's clearly got the Wicked Witch thing, but then when there's the click in the heels, no place like home, in her red high heels, I'm like, but she wants to go home?
Yeah.
I don't think that's where you want to go, but so let's just go with stuff we found.
Yeah.
This is a Bonnie and Clyde tale of running away. The mom is essentially not happy. Like Nicolas Cage, his character, and Laura Dern's are together. She's, I'm gonna say, a bit younger than him. He's a former like car wheelman for a mob boss guy. And one night, Laura Dern's mom hits on him at a gala. He refuses. She sends a guy to like kill him. He kills the guy. He goes to jail. He comes out. They go out on the run because her mom doesn't want him to do anything. She hires a detective. He's not good enough, so she hires the old mob boss that was Nick Cage's boss, who she has a relationship with. And then there's a whole bunch of shit that goes on. A bunch of people get hired. Flashbacks happen.
A lot of people die.
But the mom, I feel her anger, like when you find out, was it Santos? Was that his name?
Yeah, yep.
All right. I feel like the whole thing with the mom is that her relationship with Santos, she sees Lula and Sailor. Like that was me
In that,
with Santos.
yeah.
And in her fear of trying to stop it, she's creating it and her recklessness. But I see that little bit there, but she goes insane. And if you watch other Lynch movies, this character kind of appears in different things.
Right.
And she's actually Laura Dern's mom in real life too, Diane Ladd.
Yeah, which is I didn't know that until the rewatch as well. Which is, I mean, I remember, I think it was when The Return came out. Dern was talking about her life with Lynch and the films they've done together, and said that of everything she's done, she doesn't want her kids to watch Wild at Heart, and it's not because of things she does in the movie; it's because of things grandma does in the movie. Oh man!
Oh wow, that's funny.
Yeah, her character is like Diane Ladd's character. The mom is just incredible. I mean, she's just madness.
And I love the weird like there's the one part where he comes to the table and she goes, Santos! That's just so Lynch. It's just like he sucks you in, pulls you out. He wants you to see around. Like it's deliberate. Like, and I love his big dramatic. Like, he does a ton. Like he was doing a ton in Twin Peaks at the time. Like the overbearing soap opera music.
Yeah, right.
And trying to like over dramatize scenes. And there's a little bit here in a different way.
The dialed up insanity of like the overacting that's happening. I mean, obviously Cage is just how he lives anyway, but even like Laura Dern, who's like this incredible actress, has this weird like overacting, like really dramatic quality about her that I didn't see in Blue Velvet. And it's just like
it's a 180.
It's given you this, which is again kind of felt another reason why I felt like Twin Peaks to me is like you're watching this weird campy soap opera that kind of feels like a cartoon or a comedy, but then is so violent. Lula's backstory is horrifying, but that mixed with all this like campy soap opera stuff,
their relationship, which is the crux of this whole thing. I noticed he does a lot of yin and yang balance stuff with them that I don't know, maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, but there's a shot. I was noticing it for a bit, and I remembered a couple bits, and I'm shaming myself for not going back finding the third one. I can't remember, but there's one shot in the hotel where she's in like the bathroom putting on her bra.
Yeah,
and
right in the beginning.
He's laying on the bed with his feet up, and he's got the alarm clock on it, and he's pulling on the cord. So I noticed, I'm like, that's interesting. She's standing up. She's right side up, standing up. She's pulling down her bra strap to pull up and support her breasts, while he's upside down, has this clock on his feet while he's pulling it down to support it on his feet. And I was like, that's like push and pull. And the shot has her right here and him here. So
like kind of mirrored.
Yeah, you can see it. And I was like, I wonder, I was like, that's got to be intentional. And then there's a moment in the bed after they've fornicated one of the billion times where they're laying across opposite each other, and he's got his legs straight to her, and she's got around, and she's got her covers up, and he's got the covers down. And I was like, is this more of this balance stuff?
I like that you found that.
And there was a part where we pan over, it's a close-up of him cleaning off his boot. Like he's cleaning his boot off, and then she's painting her nails. So it's like cleaning one off.
Yeah, right.
That was it. That was the other one.
Dude, all right.
I was like, is he, like, it's got to be deliberate, like just showing this, how they're yin and yang to each other. And she's normally got a light top on, and he's got that big jacket.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of push and pull from them that I liked.
I mean, that I love that because I feel like that's another kind of big question in the movie. Like as you're watching it is, who's the hero, who's Dorothy, if that's what you're trying to figure out. Cause at times it's definitely Cage, but then things happen with Dern, that make her feel attacked or weak But then at other time, I mean, but then she's the one that's defeated the mother in the end and throwing the water on her and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, I don't know. I like that it's unclear who the hero is, who's protecting who, especially that we have like a man and woman in that kind of like teeter-totter role, yeah, especially for a Lynch film that felt kind of magical.
Right, yeah, and they're good together. They have good chemistry, and this is one of my this is a favorite Cage role. He's got the people,
no kidding.
People know this from him with the cigarette hanging out of his mouth and pointing, like they know that
exactly.
moment. And it's great, but there's so much to it.
Oh, I mean, thinking of like most legendary Cage moments for me, like when they're in the desert and they just decide to stop because they need to dance, and they turn on Power Mad or whatever and just start like kicking up dirt. It's just, from the first time I watched it to now, like that scene is just one of my favorite things ever.
The metal is really an interesting choice, like because he's this like diehard Elvis guy, but he loves heavy metal. And I came up with this time, I'm like, so his outer shell is like heavy metal, but deep in his heart, which Lula brings out, he's got the Elvis. So when he's really down there, he'll sing his Elvis song. Yeah, so
and I mean, that's exactly it. Like, I mean, obviously the scene of them in the when she gets him out of prison, and they get all dolled up and then go to watch Power Mad live, and it turns into him singing Love Me. And it's just like, it's exactly what you just said. Like, they're there because of who he is, but then once he's melted down, all that's left is him serenading her with an Elvis song in front of a metal crowd.
Yeah, I think they even cut one of the songs from the movie. I was watching, if there was another song, I was like, wait, I don't think this happened in here. And then you got to wait till the Love Me Tender. That's like the one, but he never sings. Yeah, and Lynch has called this Finding Love in Hell. That's what he says this movie's about.
Okay.
And he does do it, like there's a lot of the matches striking with close-ups and sound, and then the cigarette cherries dragging, which is a big thing, which I was trying to like, what's that? But it's like just supposed to show their fire and passion, I guess. That's all I could take from it. I thought there might be something more to it, but
it's cool. On that note, like before you realize Lula's full backstory and the car accident and all that kind of stuff, there's so much fire. There's so many cuts to fire, and
That's
you're
true.
just thinking, oh, this is like their passion for each other, because you're seeing, they're having sex every other scene in the first half of the movie, and then there's these shots of fire, and then when you realize that the fire is actually this traumatizing accident, it's part of her story, then it's this weird thing where all of a sudden what you thought was a depiction of their love and specifically their sex is actually this like traumatizing, which is like classic Lynch of just having like the violence on top of sex and the just the crossroads of all that kind of, I don't know. It's like this weird emotional engagement that he does, where it's like these shortcuts to something really passionate, whether it's because it's very like hypersexual or like hyper violent, and it's dramatically emotionally engaging in like a fever dream kind of way. It's not, and this is just filled with it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I should have put that together a little bit better, but yeah, I like that how he's leading you into that. They have a lot of sex in this movie, but there's two roads to this. Like Laura Dern's, we see a flashback where like her dad's business partner had molested, abused her, raped her, and she got blood on her face. So he obviously smacked or punched her, and then she's in love with Sailor, and their sex is pretty rough when they have it. So I'm like, oh, so that's since how she was introduced to sex that way, that's maybe how she thinks it is. And so the guy who's like reckless and rough with her, like Sailor, she thinks this is the guy, like he's good at it.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking maybe that's her big time attraction to, because she's only 20 in the film. When we start the film, at the end she's 25 probably.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that, and for Sailor, I think he was addicted to his life of crime, and the antidote, cure, recovery for it was Lula. And the moment that she finds out she's pregnant and like the sex cools off and they're not on the road anymore, he's right back into crime. Did you notice that? Like, he goes for dumb job.
Exactly.
So, like he joins Bobby Peru, who he does not like. He's like, well, we'll go for this job. Like the minute he's like away from his cure, his newest addiction, he falls right back into his old trap.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's what I figured with their sexual relationship. That's kind of how they each come to it.
That's a good perception of like the deeper backstory in the character, which not that Lynch doesn't go deep, but he's, I don't know, it could be notoriously surface level sometimes with characters because it's more about vibe and emotion and like being abstract. And to have, I mean, maybe that credit is to the writer of the novel. I don't know, but I feel like to have
Cage,
that in
Cage
here.
Might have given,
Good point. Good point. I really appreciate that kind of the depth of that. And because I would argue that there's not a lot of depth to Cage, maybe. So,
I don't think I have watched people talking about this, and I read a couple essays, and many people are like, "There's not a lot." This is a Lynch movie where there's not a lot of depth to these people, but Laura Dern and Cage give it so much more than it possibly could have had. Which Cage, I mean, say what you will about him, that the man gives you everything, anything, and he always,
that's true.
He's a great for Lynch because he always is aware of the kind of film he's in. Like that's what I don't think people appreciate. They're he's in these bad movies. I'm like, watch him in them. He knows when he's supposed to ham. He knows when he's supposed to go a little bit camp, and he knows when to give a like Oscar dramatic performance. Like he can do it all. The guy's a movie geek. He loves movies, and he knows exactly what kind of thing he's in. And he also takes roles because like he just did this really stupid samurai-ish kung fu movie. But Tony Jaa's in it, and I bet he saw one of Tony Jaa's Muay Thai movies and was like, I'll be in with that guy, so I'm doing it. Like that's
and he made it happen. Yeah, exactly.
Like, Nick Cage is Superman. I'm like, dude, Nick Cage loves Superman. So like, come on.
Yeah, curious what you think, but I feel like this is probably a tame Cage movie, and
a tame big Cage movie, I would say.
Tame
big, because he does go big, and but he's in like I love it. You can tell like there's key phrases and stuff that get him into like Peanut when he says like Peanut, like hey Peanut, like he gets really into that, and he's fun in this, and Dern's poppy and fun, and like let's Bobby Peru.
Yeah. Oh man,
the character people probably most remember from this thing.
How wonderfully awful is William Dafoe in this movie? Man, he's nasty.
They have maybe one of the most effective rape scenes that involves no sex.
Good Lord.
It's mental rape, and it's all like worse than watching a rape.
That scene and his character have stuck with me my entire... I mean, I've watched this too young probably, but it has stuck with me my entire life. I don't even want to say it's incredible because it's just a horrific scene, but I think that it really is a testament to like the actors that Dafoe and Dern are. Like by the time that scene is over, you are exhausted. You feel dirty.
Yeah.
Like you feel like she has been like rescued. When she's clicking her heels at the end of the scene, it's just like you just want to start crying. Like, please, it is. I'll go home too, please.
It's so tough. Like, and every time I watch it, I kind of like it lulls me into forgetting how it winds up. Like, I'm
exactly.
Like, I was like, and it's so good. Like, it feels like the first time every time you see it. And he's got that teeth that are gross, but he's got a confidence, and he's playing a wild out there character, but it feels like one of the most straight characters in the damn movie. Like, I think it might be because he perfectly fits the environment, so he feels so natural in it.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. That's good.
And he doesn't show up for a long time. I was like, wait, Defoe's in this more, but even to his like death. He gets shot down, he falls on a shotgun, it blows his head off, and it bounces off a wall, which Lynch had to censor with smoke for release. Yeah, but there's an uncut version you can find of it, which the smoke doesn't cover that much. But the look on his face, like, well, I'm dead. Like, before it happens, he's just kind of
like, and whoops.
And whoops. Yeah, he's just a nutbag. He's one of the best wild card characters ever thrown in a movie. And he's just gross, and he's got this like confidence that's like I love him and like the chubby women. They like, I'm the man here.
Yeah, right, exactly. With the porno that's being filmed next door or whatever in the motel.
Oh gosh.
It is something like weird and redeeming about, so you watch that scene and then you hate him and especially knowing what she's been through, obviously, like in her childhood, even what you were saying about her relationship with Sailor, like that there's like violence, it's there's like a rough quality about their sex that's probably like a direct through line from her own like trauma in her life. And then here she has Bobby Peru, and in this scene he's like kind of convincing her that when he's done whispering and touching her and everything, that she's going to be asking for the sex, and she ends up doing that, and it's just like you feel so horrible for her. Like I don't even have the words for it. She feels like weak maybe in that scene, which is a tough thing to think about in a Lynch movie for all the accusations of his portrayal of women, because she's obviously this really strong character. She's, in my opinion, the hero of the movie, but has this moment of weakness in that scene that you're trying to unpack as the audience of like, why was that allowed to get through? Why was she not able to overtake Peru in that moment? And then you just hate him so much, and then that man's demise is just him tripping and accidentally blowing his head off.
Right.
It's kind of magnificent.
Right.
That's like, oh man.
Lynch, he had been accosted a bunch by critics with this treatment of Isabella Rossellini on Blue Velvet.
Right.
But I'll say this, she's in this movie.
Right.
She worked with him again. Laura Dern has a lot of sexual stuff in this movie. She works with him again and again. And, like it's, if they didn't, they would have, and her mom was on this movie too. So
right. No, yeah, it's such a, I don't know. It's just a really tricky, it's a tricky thing to navigate as a fan, as a viewer. I think we've seen enough Lynch. I've read enough Lynch to know that he just has this way of playing with both mystery and love and violence and like this like swirling pot of emotions where he's painting in these broad strokes to get you to a place, and it's not where you would expect to go. It's not where you would choose to go, and it's often uncomfortable, but it does bring you to these shortcuts of these really emotional engagements with the character on screen. And when those characters are women, it's uncomfortable as a man to see it, but there's also like no shortage of like strength and beauty in those same depictions, which is you're confused as what you're supposed to be feeling, which might be the point of it in his mind.
And I've talked about before, I've always talked about with this film is like some people get bothered. I'm like, and they like turn against a film because it made them feel a certain way. I'm like, they were supposed to make you feel a certain way. That did its job. It's successful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're not, you don't come around, the point of it was to, why would I want to feel that? I'm like, you need to, like, film is an art. Art is supposed to make you feel, it's supposed to evoke emotions, inspiration, all sorts of things. And, like, not all of it's like, ha-ha.
Yeah.
It's not all Snickers, man. It's, like, it's got to make you do other things. It's like life, art is life. And it's, it's got to make you feel different stuff. Like, you don't go, you go watch a football game and your team loses. Like, you don't go hating them for, you probably do, but
but no, it's I really appreciate, I guess, that the way he's chosen to, I don't know, just paint with those emotions in that way. And
I don't think it comes from a place of ill intention or anything like that. I think that's just how the vision comes out, and I think he is fully earned the trust and given the clarity to his performers that they keep coming back. Everybody wants to work with Lynch again. They like him. They understand. They know that. So I really, while some of it is kind of vulgar or...
Yeah. And thinking about that scene, thinking about Dern's role, like, that scene's extremely vulgar. It's hard to watch. But if the theme of this movie is kind of the don't turn away from love line, like the takeaway is not that scene, is not what happened in that scene. It's the power that Laura had. That's the funny when I heard Laura come out of my mouth. I thought I was misspeaking Laura Palmer. But like there's a power that Lula has in the film, and it's not belittled by that scene existing. It kind of has its climax at the end of the movie when she finally overtakes her mother, and like her confidence with Sailor choosing to leave because of everything that's happened to them, and the Lula character. Have you ever read the book? I'm curious if you have.
I have not read the book. I have not read the book, and the author says Lynch did his own thing with it, but he's not he likes it. He
interesting.
Likes what he did with it.
The Lula character is very fascinating to me, and rewatching it as an adult, it was hard in a lot of ways because I think I'd forgotten about the violence and those like vulgar moments, but then in like the peaks opposite the valleys for her in the film is like, man, she's actually just a fascinating portrayal of a woman who's extremely confident and has this awareness of her emotions, this love with this like murderer that keeps going to prison, and that she's also like fighting like this mystical power in her mother. It's just, I don't know. I don't have the words for it. I feel like I'm stumbling. But it's really fascinating. It's fascinating and it's confusing because it's wild at heart, and that's not what I had remembered in the movie. So rewatching it as a grown man now was like, whoa, this is.
You and I could watch this tomorrow and come up with a whole different view on it.
Exactly.
Like that's the beauty of Lynch. That's why I love it stuff, and that's why I've been doing with, there's films I think that you should see like young, check it out again in like 5 years, as you go through life. Like that's happened to me with like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Blade Runner and stuff. You get a different idea from them, or a different feeling, or your life's in a different place. And I think it's one of those films. Vertigo, that one I showed to my 8-year-old son last year, and because I was reviewing the 4K of it, and I was like, look, you're gonna hate me, you're gonna be bored, but I want you to watch it now, and then like 5 or 6 years you and I are gonna watch it again.
Oh, I love it.
And then down the road, because Vertigo for me was like, and then now I'm just like fascinated by the damn thing. And he watched it and he was like, yeah, okay. And then like the day later he was talking about it. He's like, remember in Vertigo?
Oh,
and
cool.
And it's like, all right, he's picking up on some things. But it's a weird, and Vertigo sounds like a straight thing, but there's a lot of visual storytelling that's so fascinating with that, which is in part of, I'll swing it back to David Lynch. There's a lot of visual stuff that goes with just enjoying it on that level. I should, it'd be fun to watch this movie on mute, see what comes of it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, the
dialogue and music can be distracting. Like you can get something else out of it.
Yeah. I mean, and the another thing I had forgotten about Wild at Heart is that the score, like the Badalamenti score. I mean, another connection to Twin Peaks. Like there are moments that really feel like Badalamenti was in the same zone, same instruments, which I love. But then, of course, there's the Elvis and the Power Mad metal. So,
and there's the one, and it feels perfect. The most perfect song for this film is it Chris Isaac?
Oh, yeah.
That
He's got
one
a
that
couple
plays
songs.
A little bit. But that one, when they're driving in the night, I'm like, this is the perfect song to go. Why wasn't this abused throughout the damn film? It's the perfect desert driving music.
No kidding. Man, there are.
But that would be expected, and David not do what you expect.
Exactly. But some of those driving scenes of that, I'm sorry that we're skipping all over the place, but that's no better way to talk about a Lynch film, I guess. Mm-hmm. But the shots of, Lula and Sailor have the talk about that he wants to do this heist with Bobby Peru. She doesn't want him to. The next morning he leaves and he's doing it, and there's no audio in the movie. You're only listening to music. Like the sound design is missing, and it's just Lula crying, Cage in the back seat of the convertible questioning what he's off to, and then Peru and Rossellini in the front seat like laughing, and it just slow motion, just back and forth between those three shots with this great Badalamenti score over it. And it's like, man, I could watch that for an hour and a half. Just
well, there's all different, like there's a lot of little parts. I mean, there's the scene where Grace Zabriskie, the mom from Twin Peaks, where she's first introduced, and it's all shadow.
Yeah,
and then she does come out, and she's got a cane. She's differently a typical, like if there's a typical Lynch character, she fits the bill. But then she's is it David Patrick Kelly's with her, and like. Mm-hmm. He's a known commodity, and he's definitely, I mean, he's in a bunch of Lynch stuff too, but like he's underused. He did appear in a lot of deleted material
Did
so I
he?
guess that just happened. Crispin Glover's in a random
Right.
flashback role. He had a moment cut where they ran into him at like a fill-up station or something.
Oh, crazy.
But you know what? Any chance to give Crispin Glover was made for David Lynch.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
It's surprising that this is one of their few
I know. It really is, isn't it?
versions. Yeah.
And the scene, is it true that his character in this movie is kind of like this afterthought? Like it was designed just to be this random
I think so.
scene. Like I always hear that. I mean, it feels like it, but
I think it's supposed to be like helping fulfill and show the kind of people that Lula's been surrounded with.
yeah, okay.
And maybe
She's a cousin.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And maybe Sailor is the most normal thing
Yeah.
she's ever had. But yeah, it's a really weird. I like the sandwiches bit. It cracks me up. He's like, "I'm making my sandwiches."
I know.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
I know. I had forgotten about that line. Rewatching it, and it
Yeah.
was just like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh man.
I dig this. Like, it's hard for me not to like something Lynch, but
Right. Mhm.
I really dig this one. And there's plenty to sink your teeth into. If you like the weirder Lynch stuff, it's there for sure. But
Yeah, I think knowing the Wizard of Oz madness. I mean, obviously Cheryl Lee as the good witch of the North is.
in case you weren't paying attention the whole time, here she comes.
Yeah, exactly. But I noted. I mean, you probably caught it, but I did not remember. I don't know the actor's name. He was also in Dune as one of the Mentats. He approaches them at a bar, and his hair is styled like one of the Munchkins in Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
And he
Yep.
talks to them in like a sped up chipmunk voice. I'm like, is this like
That was the actor's choice. He wanted that. He decided
That
he
was
wanted, and Lynch was like, because he was just supposed to talk
incredible.
normal. Yeah.
just
But that's
talking about pigeons and incredible Wizard of Oz moment that
Right.
is easy to miss somehow.
yeah.
But
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I forgot about that. There's so much, like, there's a bunch of stuff that listeners probably like, they didn't talk about this.
I
But I'm
know,
like, there's
I know.
so much. It's rough. So like Harry Dean Stanton, we barely touched him,
Right.
but he's just he's normal as hell. Like he's just straight Harry Dean Stanton there, and you feel
Yep,
bad
little
for him.
Private Eye,
And-
yeah.
Yep.
Private Eye that gets tortured and murdered.
Yeah, in the hotel. Yeah, poor guy. Thought he was in love. No. And then there's the Santos. I guess in the book though, the Santos character is the guy that gets called on the toilet with the woman. Where you see
Is
this
he?
guy? Oh, it's
Mr.
a guy,
Reindeer.
Yeah, and Mr. Reindeer, and he pulls out, and there's a naked woman dancing. He's on
Yeah.
the toilet. It's this rich bathroom. I'm like, this is great. This is oh my gosh. That's Santos in the book.
It is.
And then,
Okay.
And then the character that Grace Zabriskie plays is made up as well.
Oh, so was Mr. Reindeer made up as well? Like he added by Lynch?
Well, yeah, he's added, but he was Santos.
and kind
Santos,
of like split.
He made Santos more involved with the mom and stuff. That's what Lynch added that to it. Yeah. But I guess there's like 8 books of this series. Like it's a series of books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's like a bunch of them. So
All right, here I know what we're doing this year, I guess.
reading up on these books. Yeah.
That scene, Mr. Reindeer on the toilet, the naked lady dancing next to him. In the background is the Platters, the old like Motown artists, the
Okay.
Platters playing. And
Yeah.
that song is the song that the Gotta Light guy puts on the record in the Twin Peaks of Return.
Oh.
In that episode 8, the crazy episode that just classic nonlinear
The best
Lynch.
one?
Yeah. And I feel like talking to people about the Return and rewatching the Return, it's been fun to kind of like play Where's Waldo in it and figure out where he's referencing his career now that we know that that's kind of what is happening in the Return. And I think that maybe the Platters playing in the Gotta Light scene is referencing the Mr. Reindeer scene, listening to the Platters in Wild at Heart. I don't know. He has that music a lot. I mean, Mulholland Drive had that, obviously Blue Velvet and Roy Orbison. And
That's
I think that's what was happening there with the platter.
I'll take it.
song.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Marking it down.
All right.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I at one point thought I was onto something with
See, I love this. I thought I was following this.
Yeah.
No.
Which again, as life Lynch fans, that's what you learn, that like he was thinking about it a lot more than you realized, and B, the thing you're thinking about a lot, he didn't even care
no
about.
Idea.
Yeah. But all the sex scenes are in a different color, and at first I thought we were working our way through Roy G. Biv or something for like
yeah.
But I don't think that's what's happening.
And then I thought maybe it was trying to recreate like something from the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Going on, like maybe it's the poppies or like I don't know.
Right,
like
yeah.
I couldn't put it together. I'm like, well, next time, shelve it. We'll do it next time.
Yep.
What else? This is where we just talk about other things we may have taken in media-wise, books, music, movies, blah, 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 or maybe something we've recently put out in the world. So, Nate, what else?
Man, the most recent thing that I've worked on is a record. Oh, man, end of 2019, beginning of 2020, put out kind of this EP that revisited the first record that Metavari did.
Okay.
And I brought back every musician that I had ever played with through the life of Metavari, and we rewrote every song on that first record in kind of the world that I'm living in now as Metavari. And it was just this really fun, weird project, kind of like one of the members just didn't have a way to record anything and did like an acoustic piece recorded on his cell phone. And I was able to then like transpose it and
cool.
interpret it. And it was really cool. It's really somber side of it is that the guy that I started the band with died last year of a really short battle with cancer. And it was kind of like an homage to him. We knew that things had taken a turn and were unsure how much longer he'd be with us. So Ty and I got together and we got all these pieces from all these members, and we sat in a studio for a week and rewrote all these songs together. And it was this really beautiful, awesome way to just kind of like write the final thing that we would ever write together. It was really cool. It was so much fun. It was so I'm so thankful that we made the time for that and did it. But that's the last thing that the Metavari did. It's called Soft Continuum.
Okay.
And it's free. I mean, it's streaming on all the platforms, but it's also, free on our site and stuff like that. But I would be remiss not to talk about it because it's just like a big part of my year for sure. It's just like getting it finished and having this cool little memento, especially having all those guys involved in it again.
Gotcha. Excellent. Let's see. Myself, I did a review for the 4K of Love and Monsters. It's a nice little film. It's very full, that kind of a post-apocalyptic young adult novel kind of thing.
Okay.
But not so grim, much brighter, fun lead to follow around. It's an adorable little movie. But what I want to point out, which is I have been guilty of not checking this out, and I didn't in time for my top 10 for the year last year, because I thought it was a mini series, but this is actually like a movie split into 5 parts. Amazon did not roll it out appropriately, so because it's great. It's called Small Axe. It's from Steve McQueen, who did 12 Years a Slave, but it's
bookmarking this.
Kind of like a anthology. The first one's 2 hours, and the rest are about 60 minutes. It's 5 parts, and it focuses on Black life in the UK in the like 60s, 70s, where there's a lot of racism and shit going on. Like, we don't see that from like whenever we see racism stories, it's always America. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's cool to pass the buck on to someone else, but to see the similarities and how it's going on. And it's got people like John Boyega's in it. I can't remember her name, the Black Panther's sister in the movie. She's in one of them. A lot of people, but McQueen does. I'm not through with it. I have one more to go, but he's done a thing where like every one of them like feels like it could have been done by a different director. Like he takes different styles to it, and it's visually fascinating. His second one's called Lover's Rock. And now this is the least hard one to watch of them.
Okay,
and this is just like. It's very Richard Linklater, slacker, kind of dazed and confusey, like.
Weird.
It's just about this like party. Like, it starts with a girl coming home from a party late one night, and then just follows around this party getting set up, these teens going to the party, having these dramas. It's not a lot of like main character following around. You're just kind of like there at the party, and nothing bad really happens. It's more like teen drama, but like it just works, and it sings, and you're just like, and I don't even remember. I was like, was this one shot? Did they try to do that, or did they? It just felt so
fluid
there. Yeah, and it's only an hour. It doesn't feel long, but it feels like you were really there for the whole thing, and it's just kind of fun and bouncy and just youthful, and to see, like, because they had to have this party like this hidden apartment a ways away, and they bring the music in, and they like have DJs and people singing live, and these kids just dancing or going outside to smoke and having a fight or something and hooking up and stuff, and it's really interesting. It's one of the most interesting things I've seen. Like, I saw it in 2021, but of the previous year, it would have notched up my list somewhere, that one part at least. But the other ones have this restaurant owner who gets harassed by white cops, and there's a lot of good court dramas in these movies too.
Really?
And there's one where John Boyega is sick of racism. It's one of his father or somebody gets like hospitalized by police, and he decides to join the police force, and it goes about his drug because he wants to make a difference. He's like, we don't have enough black cops.
Wow.
And stuff, but it's like, yeah, it's really, and there's one about a kid who gets incarcerated for dumb stuff, and you see his life growing up, just not having the opportunities, and just how the system was against him. And it's just fascinating, and really good filmmaking too. Some of them there's tough stuff to watch, but it's great. Like, McQueen's really, really good in there. Like, I think his directing's stronger than 12 Years a Slave on that. And
wow.
And that one won Oscars and stuff, but I really like what he's doing here. It's fascinating. But it was supposed to be a film told in 5 parts, and Amazon's like, miniseries, season 1. It's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be. So I was like, I'm going to watch this, but I'm going to get to it later. I got to get my films in. And then I found out it was a film. So
sweet.
That sucks. But yeah, small axe. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Nate, it is always the greatest of pleasures to reconnect with you, and I thank you for
seriously
the greatest podcast theme of podcast themes. So tell me about your latest, but where can people keep up with Metavari?
Yeah, so we are old fashioned, and I put a lot on our regular old website, metavari.com. Back catalog is up there, socials link from there. The entire catalog of Metavari is free on our Bandcamp, which links from the website. But everything you need to know is metavari.com. So
awesome. And you can find that on my website too. If you go to About the Show, it's already there. So that'll do it for today. I'll be back tomorrow on YouTube for 4K Blues Day, and the podcast will return on Wednesday for Old Space Show. Until then, always remember to keep the positivity in your online film discussion.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.
Bobby Peru, just like the country.
Bobby just rolled into town a couple days ago. Yeah, Bobby here is the most exciting item to hit Big Tuna since the '86 cyclone sheared the roof off the high school.
You from, Texas, Mr. Burrow?
Oh, I'm from all over. Over.